Hi YouTube. For various reasons, this will be my last video for a while. Long story short, I need to get my life in order. It's not mental issues, it's prioritizing things before I can find time to make more YouTube videos. Anyways, with two possible exceptions. Well, not possible, definite for one of them and possible for the other. The first one is I will continue to make those monthly short videos detailing my progress of reading this massive tome, Robert Ludlum's The Apocalypse Watch. They're just 2 to 3 minute videos, so no big deal. I will continue giving progress on how far along I've gotten in reading this book. The second one is a possible exception. I might, in the days ahead, make a video about horror books so I can get into the good graces of the horror booktube community. So there you go. But the purpose for tonight's video, however, is to talk about dystopian books. Now, just like my alternate history book collection, I will only give you a few cliff notes about each book, but I won't tell you the story. Because if I did, the story in each book, the plot, because if I did, this video would go on all night. And I don't want that. So without further ado, here we go. Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, a society where books are banned and where the firemen burn the books. There you go. Very straightforward and simple. I like this book a lot because it's practically a pocket book. It's so small. I love small books. Next up. Sinclair Lewis's It Can't Happen Here. I love this one. This book was written in 1935 amidst a lot of anxiety over the rise of fascism in Europe and the economic depression which might drive American voters into the arms of a fascist in the United States. There was a lot of anxiety and a lot of talk going on about what would happen if fascism were to rise in the United States. This book, from a 1935 perspective, speculates on how that could play out. Okay, next up. George Orwell's Animal Farm, which is an allegory to the rise of the Soviet Union in the form of, told in the form of a group of farm animals. It's just a little bit of a strange premise. It's just a novella, it's a short story. So it's interesting, but I don't know. I don't know if I liked it that much. Okay, next up. George Orwell's 1984, the book that needs no introduction, a society where your every move is watched by surveillance, so the warning about the rise of the surveillance state, and where even having the wrong thoughts is a crime. Not just what you write, not just what you speak, but not just what you do, but also what you think. That's frightening. But we all know that, right? Next up. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This copy is actually my dad's copy. I'm borrowing it until I finish reading it. I haven't begun reading it yet, though, but I will once I finish this monstrosity. But it's still a good book. It's just way, 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 way too long. Anyway, this book tells the story of a group of boys, of children, all of them boys, marooned on a tropical island in the midst of a nuclear war, and they try to rebuild a society from scratch, but they devolve into base animal instincts and become really, really nasty to each other. That's the basic premise. I couldn't talk to you about the society without giving away a little bit of the plot in there. Next up, Jennifer Government by Max Berry. This is an interesting one. It's what if there was too little government as opposed to too much? What if libertarian economics, neoliberal economics, laissez-faire economics was taken to its ultimate conclusion? Things like having to pay for emergency services. Someone in the book had to pay with a credit card for ambulance services. I wouldn't want to live in that kind of society. Next. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. What if a society where, what if where women have all their rights taken away and they are valued only for their ability in bearing children? Where men have all the power and women, their only value is to reproduce. That's the basic gist of it. I like this one. It was a little bit, one of my criticism was the plot itself was all jumbled up, was mixed up. It wasn't strictly chronological, but otherwise it's a good book. And Margaret Atwood made a point that a lot of these things, all of these things, have already happened, or are happening in the real world. This is just all the worst elements of humanity brought together in one place. So that's interesting. Next up, Jack London's The Iron Heel. This is an odd book. It is a socialist manifesto masquerading as a novel. And Jack London tells the story of the increasing gap between rich and poor, and where there's an inevitable, when an inevitable socialist revolution comes, the wealthy elite, the wealthy 1%, will crush it with brute force. Will crush the revolution before it can before it can win the day. So Jack London was very pessimistic about the future. This book, by the way, is credited with predicting the rise of fascism, with predicting the economic depression, and the stock market crash, with predicting World War I, because it was published in 1908. The world's first dystopia, although they might not have that title, the world's first dystopia might have been Lord of the World. Look that one up. I don't have that book with me. So, there you go. 2 more to go. Stephen King's The Long Walk. I can't read this because it's in Dutch. This one just tells the story about the concept of walking to your death. So it's not really world building of an ugly society. The story itself is not the society. The society is only the excuse to be, The dystopian society is only the excuse to have that walking to your death idea be played out. So it's not about the society, it's about the concept of walking to your death. Very frightening. I wish I could read that book. Last one. Now, before I show you this one though, please, if you don't want spoilers, please tune out. This book, just by me telling you that it's a dystopia, is already a spoiler in itself. Because this book is so defined by its spoiler, it's by its plot twist, it's extremely difficult to make well thought out reviews about this book. Because the twist itself comes at the end of chapter 3. The book is so defined by its twist that just putting this book on this list is a spoiler in itself. So please stop watching now if you don't want to be spoiled for this next book. Okay, without further ado, here it is. Robert Harris's The Second Sleep. This book reveals that medieval society really was a dystopia. People, short life expectancies, life is short and brutal, and where the church and the lords had all the power, and everyone else was a serf, slaves in all but name. So it shows that primitive and medieval societies were dystopias. So, and let this kind of society not be the future as well. We should learn from our past. It also, and here's another spoiler for this book, it also warns about the possible failure of technology. What would happen when an EMP bomb explodes and causing a massive power failure? Well, the EMP, that's an idea, that's a speculation on my part. That doesn't happen in the book, but it might have. The failure of technology might have been the cause for the rise of this primitive society. You're going to have to read the book yourself to find out. Okay, thanks for listening, and I hope I tried to be as articulate as possible and as brief as possible. So good night.